Good morning, everyone. It's Christina here, by the way, if you didn't know who I am. So for those of you who don't know, I am Christina. I am a naturopath, herbalist, GAPS practitioner, and life coach, as well as business and coach and mentor to those people who have healing in their blood, that know that they are designed for healing. So I wanted to come in today and ask the question, what do you know about coaching? Have you had an experience with coaching? For me, coaching has been something that I've known that I wanted to do for a really long time. Like, I probably knew that I wanted to do coaching before I knew that I wanted to be a naturopath, but I just didn't have the words for it. So I didn't know that was being a coach. I didn't know that. I thought maybe psychologist, counselor, those types of things. That was, the terminology that I had thought of, because I hadn't heard the terminology of coach before. And so I didn't know what that meant, and I didn't know, I didn't actually have the word, and I didn't know what a coach did. And when I thought of coaching, I thought of like soccer or basketball, where you have a coach that is like cheering you on or like telling you how to get better at your game. And I hadn't really thought about that in terms of our lives, in that having somebody to help us get better at our game of life, or whatever element, because like you can have coaches we focus on any element. So it could be, you're working on money. It could be that you're working on relationships, that you're working on whatever. Robin, I love you being my coach. I love being your coach too. I think I have the best clients ever. Like, I really love the clients that I work with. So I think I just happen to get the best clients ever, because they are beautiful, and it's such a privileged space to be in with somebody. But it's interesting as I reflect back upon my own life, because I remember that, when you're at uni or you finish, good morning, Tara, when you finish college, well, for here in Tasmania, it's like year 11 and 12 is college, and then you get, you then make a choice. Do you go do a job, or do you then go and go to university? And so I was thinking about going to university, and I picked a course that I liked, which was a Bachelor of Performing Arts. And so I wanted to go and study a Bachelor of Performing Arts. And in the interview, what they actually asked me was, if you don't get into this qualification now, what will you do? And my answer to that question was, I'll go and study psychology for a year, and then I'll come back and try again. Like, that was my answer to their question of what if you don't get in. Because psychology was the other thing that like really intrigued me. Like, I always loved the idea, or was always curious about why people do the things that they do. Because much of my childhood, I would often spend observing and watching, because I was the youngest, and I was the youngest of 5, but my other brothers and sisters were considerably older than me. So there was like an 8-year gap between me and the rest of the family. And then of course they were much older than that as well. And so I was a part of a big family, what would be considered a big family today. I was also at the same time somewhat experiencing the life of a only child. I wasn't an only child, and I wasn't also and I was from a big family, but the gap meant that it was often just me and my parents, like especially in my foundational teenagey type years. It was often just me and my parents, because my older brothers and sisters were off doing their own things. So I spent a lot of time just observing and listening to conversation, listening to adult conversation, and seeing what had happened in people's lives, and listening to what they were doing. And, so I was really keenly interested in, why do people do the things that they do? Like, as a kid, I need all the answers to the questions. Like, I know how to fix all these problems. Clearly, I didn't have the full understanding of all the intricacies and the complexities of the problems. But as a kid, I was like, why are you doing that? Like, any blind Freddy can see that if you do that, he's going to do this, and then you're going to be sad again. Like, blind Freddy can see that. So why do you keep doing it? And that type of stuff really intrigued me, as to, even they, I'm sure, knew that if they did this thing, it was still going to work out the same way, and they were going to end up with the same problem, and they're going to be here again in 3 months' time, crying their eyes out because they, the thing that they wanted didn't happen, and that person didn't change, and, it was the same result. It was the same thing that made them sad in the first place. And so I remember having lots of conversations in my head going, why are you doing the thing that you do? Like, everybody here can see, even you can see, that it's going to create the same problem. So why are you doing it? And that question led me a lot to ask those questions. Why do we do the things that we do as humans? Why do we choose the behaviors that we choose? And that led me to that understanding of that subconscious patterning, that subconscious of, we created a pattern, and we create it generally when we're young in order to keep ourselves safe. And it served us then, it kept us safe. If you're still alive today, it kept you safe. But it doesn't always allow you to be who you actually are. And it means that you continue that pattern, because it's like our brain. Our brain is somewhat like a computer. It's not the same. We're much, much better than computers, I'm just saying. But our brain is somewhat like a computer in the sense that it has programs, and it likes to build things on programming. It likes to create automatic patternings, because it's got lots of things that it needs to think about. It needs to like regulate your blood pressure. It needs to make sure that you're still breathing and you're alive and all of that type of stuff. It's got lots of jobs to do. So it wants to regulate and automate as many of those jobs and processes as it possibly can. So it's created these processes and programs for how you do things. So for example, majority of you will get up the same side of the bed every morning. You'll throw your blankets off generally somewhat around the same way. You'll then go do the same type of pattern that you do. So it might be that you wake up, you go to the toilet, you then go do something else, and you brush your teeth. So we have these patterns that we generally do pretty much the same on autopilot, because our brain likes to set things, as many as it can, on autopilot, so that, you know, things are ticking along. And so most of our lives are run out of this autopilot sort of space. And it's not until we create conscious awareness of it that we actually can start to think about, well, why do I do the thing that I do? And what is the belief that's running that? What are the thoughts that are running that? What are the patterns? How do I break these? How do I shape these? How do I change these? How do I do all of those things? And it's in that where coaching really finds its sweet spot, in that it's helping you bring that conscious awareness to the things that were subconscious patterns. And those subconscious patterns were created because at some point in your life, you needed something to keep you safe. You needed to stay safe for some reason. And that reason can be multitude. Everybody has their own different reason. Everybody has their own pattern. There are some similarities in patterning, but they're not the same. They're never exactly the same. They're all slightly different, and we all have different words that trigger us, and we all have different things that trigger us. And so that, for me, and learning that type of stuff, made me really get intrigued about coaching, and recognizing that that was something I needed to bring into my business. Because when I'm working with people from a dietary point of view, and we're working to try and change something for their health, we have to come up and we bang up against those patterns all of the time. So it could be a pattern that when I was sick, my mum made this. And so they're sick, so they eat this thing, but they don't realize that the thing that their mum made was just to make them shut up, and instead of actually making them better. And, you know, I'm just saying words. That doesn't mean that that's what your mother did. Don't be offended. But that's some of the stuff we have to work up against. Like even things like birthdays. You know, if we're trying to do a healing diet for you because of, you know, some major problem that you have with your health, it might mean that there's going to be a couple of birthdays that don't get to be the way that you normally would do birthdays. And that can be a trigger point for some people. So they fall off the wagon and then they don't get back on it. There are a whole bunch of those triggers that we actually bump into when we're starting to change things for your physical body. Because again, there is this spiritual connection, emotional connection, and physical connection to all of the things that you do. And so we're going to bump up against the stuff. And that was when I realized that in order to really get good results for my clients, I had to bring in coaching for them, because I had to start working through those subconscious patterns that keep people stuck, that keep people going back to the old patterns, even when they're creating great results. And I've had this time and time again where I've got a client and we're creating great results. Like things are going fantastically well for them. Like you couldn't want better for them, like how well they're doing. Like pain has suddenly gone away. Tiredness, they're waking up in the morning and they've suddenly got energy that they didn't have before. Things are actually changing for them. These flies are annoying me. they're creating the results that they wanted. And then suddenly they stop doing it. And then they avoid me. It's so funny because I always know when a client is not doing exactly what they know they should be doing, because they kind of do this dance of avoiding me where they don't necessarily answer back their Voxer messages where I'm saying, how you going? Give me an update. Let me know what's happening. Or they haven't booked in for a while. Those types of things. But essentially when they come back, the thing that we find out is that they stopped doing it. Even though they were feeling fantastic, even though they were feeling so great, they stopped doing it for some reason. And it's in that reason that we find the subconscious patterning that keeps them stuck and trapped, and the messaging that's there. So, one of the messages that I've heard from a number of clients now is taking away the food takes away all my pleasure in my life. And I'm like, wow. If food is your only pleasure in life, you need to get more pleasure in your life. Not start eating food that is perceivably pleasurable but actually detrimental to your health. We need to get more pleasure in your life. Like, let's just figure out that. Let's figure out how to create more pleasure in your life so you're actually enjoying your life, as opposed to the food having to be your pleasure source. There's another one that comes up quite a bit too, which is I'm being deprived. I'm feeling like I'm depriving myself. When really, like, if we get down to the nuts and bolts of it, what you're eating is the best food on the planet. Like, you're eating like the best food on the planet for your body, but that's somehow deprivation. And that ideology of it being deprivating, like, comes back to other wounds in your life that have not been healed. And so, yeah, I can create the perfect plan for you. I can give you the things that you need in order to thrive. But in order for you to actually implement it and actually do it, you have to heal the wounds and the stories and the beliefs and create new patterns that set you up for that success. Because willpower will only get you a certain way. Willpower will only get you to a certain point. And even if you are feeling amazing, the willpower runs out and you start to tip over. You start to get a little bit shaky on the balancing act. And you eventually go, this is too hard, I'm giving up. And then what happens is that you tell yourself, look, I'm a failure. I tried that thing. Or the other thing you do is you say, I tried the thing and it didn't work, when it was actually working for you, but you stopped working it. One of those two things generally happen, and that kind of, like, whichever way you go tends to lie on how much level of responsibility you take in your life. So for some people, they take way too much responsibility, and for other people, they take not enough responsibility. And so for me, that coaching element has to come into creating the results that you want to create in your life, because we have to change the way that we think in order to completely, fully, congruently change the way we behave. And it's true in all aspects. If you've set yourself some New Year's resolutions this year, in order to actually get what you're asking for, in order to create the things that you're asking for, you have to start thinking differently. You have to change your thinking. Ultimately, you have to change your own mind, because it's in changing your own mind that you actually change your thinking, that you actually then change your actions, because your actions come out of your thinking, not the other way around. Your thinking doesn't come out of your actions. You build evidence based out of your actions, but your thinking is the first part of it. And in order to create something new, you've got to be willing to do something differently. Because if you do the same thing you've always done, you're going to get the same results that you've always had. And in order to have something different, you have to be willing to do something different. In order to be willing to do something different, you have to be willing to think differently. And that's where coaching comes in. That's what coaching is. And that's the difference is asking yourself, why do I do the things that I do? And what are the things that I need to do differently in order to create the things that I want to have? And in the doing of the things differently, who do I need to be? How do I need to think in order to create those actions? So it's the be, do, have model. Who do I need to be in order to do the things that I need to do to have the things that I want to have. The reverse engineering is starting with the thinking. Who do I need to think like? What do I need to think like? How do I need to think in order to do things differently? And that's where the coaching stuff comes in. It comes in with healing the wounds that are there. It's in seeing the subconscious patterning that has been running your life, and it is in creating new patterns and starting to change it. And sometimes we need help with that. Sometimes we need to have a, support buddy in that helps to keep us on track, because, it's really easy to forget the things that you want to get. Like, it's the image that I have when I talk about this is like going to school at uni and studying a course where you've got to go to a class and you've got to attend the thing every single week, or doing an online study. Online study, you are responsible for what time you show up for that thing, what time you watch that video, what time you do all of the stuff. You are actually responsible for yourself. There is no intrinsic outside motivation to keep you going. When you're at uni, and you're going to the classes, assumedly, there is some intrinsic motivation there for you. There is the other people around you that are there also doing it with you. There is the lecturer that's encouraging you to do the thing. There is the deadline that's there in front of you. And you still have those things when you're doing it online, but you have to be the one that sets up your day to do that. You have to set aside the time to study. You have to set aside the time to watch the videos and do the programming. And there are lots of benefits for doing it online, in the sense that you can do it whenever you want to. You can do it faster than the rest of the class. You can go at your own speed. You can go at your own level. You can, do that. But ultimately you need to do it. And it requires a little bit more internal prompting and messaging. So we can definitely do it ourselves. But the difference of doing even an online course, doing the course live versus self-paced, means that when it's live, there is that intrinsic motivation that helps keep you going, because I've got to do the class, so I'm on and I can talk and I can comment and I can get the work done and all of that type of stuff. We have to build in some of that when we're doing it by ourselves, and coaching and personal development requires us to do that. It requires us to give ourselves the motivation to keep going when other people around us are not necessarily on our team. It requires us to, self-motivate and be responsible for self, which can be a little bit more challenging, especially if we've come through that school system where we're used to having our teacher direct us, guide us, and tell us when things are due, and, create space for that. We're used to somebody else doing that for us, and now we have to do it for ourselves. And that's where sometimes coaching can be really helpful, in that it is that constant reminder of, yes, that's right, that's what I'm plugging into. I'm plugging into that thing. I'm calling in that thing. So I knew that I needed to bring coaching into my business in order to be able to help my clients really get the results, because I know the results are absolutely possible, but they're not possible if you don't do the work for them. Like, if you don't eat the healthy food, you're not going to have the healthy body. You can't expect to eat pizza and KFC and Mars bars and have a banging body that's vibrantly healthy forever and a day. It might cope with it for a little bit of time, but it's not going to do it forever. And at some point, you're going to have to decide to put the healthy food in your mouth and put down the stuff that's not going to be so great for you. Have to do that action. And nobody else can do that for you. Unless you've got a feeding tube, nobody else can do that for you. You are the one that needs to do that. You are the one that needs to make the decisions to have that in your life. And so I knew that I needed to help people change how they thought about food and what they thought about their cultural patterns. I needed to get them in that state of consciously thinking and consciously choosing. Sorry. It's my son's go-to thing at the moment when something doesn't go his way, is to just scream in a really high-pitched sound. He's just recently learned to do it. I want him to unlearn to do it quickly. So in order to change the behavior, we need to change the thinking. And as I was working with my clients, I was realizing to get them the results that they were really wanting, that had to be a part of the equation. It had to be a part of the equation, because there are very few people that come to, and maybe it's just me, but there are very few people that come and work with me that don't have some level of emotional connection to their physical problem, that there isn't some level there that needs to be addressed or dealt with. As well as that emotional stuff of like, I actually deserve to be healthy and well. Like they can have, great money, they can have great relationships, but their health is pretty crap because they believe they can't have all of the things. And there's lots and lots of beliefs like that that come up for people. And so for me, I knew that I had to bring coaching in, and I had to do that work for myself in order to be able to bring it in for my clients. And then I had some of my clients were asking me, how do I do what you do? Because I love it and I want to actually do this with other people. And I've had some of my colleagues say, how do you do what you do? Because I know that that's the missing factor for my clients as well. I know I've got the ability to create amazing results. I know how to use my herbs inside and out. But if they don't take the herbal mixture, if they don't do the action, they don't get the results. So how do I help them learn to be compliant? How do I help them learn that they're worth actually taking that action? And that's where I created the Coaching Academy from. I created the Coaching Academy from that space of teaching my style of coaching, because there's lots and lots of different styles of coaching out there. And I've learned from a school that I went to. I've learned from sessions that I've had with particular coaches and different coaches. I've learned from lots of different places and spaces, from my own mentors, from my own coaching, from my own coaches, how I like to do it, which is not always the exact same way as everybody else. So I created Coaching Academy so that I could teach you the way that I do it and teach you the methods that I use. And so we can give you the structure, and then you can create the flow from the structure. And that's what Coaching Academy is about. It's about teaching you those skills. But it's not only that, because learning the skills to coach somebody else is absolutely important and definitely a must. But part of that is doing your own work, which is the other element that I have brought into Coaching Academy, which is like every week we do a live coaching session. So whatever students are on live during that session, you can put your hand up and you can be either the coach or the coachee. And, sometimes that works out great. Sometimes I jump in and I help. Sometimes I just do a live coaching demonstration. So we're all doing our own personal work as we actually go through the course of learning to do the personal work with other people as well. So you don't get out of it. You do it. Like your personal work comes into the actual a culmination of you learning the skills, because it's a really trusted space that you need to be in order to coach somebody. Like it's you see some of the most vulnerable parts of somebody's soul when you're coaching them. And in order to be respectful of that, you also need to sometimes enter into that space and know what it feels like to be in that, in order to honor what they're actually giving up and what they're sharing and what they're providing as well. So we do that work too. We enter into that space of being client as well as coach, so that we do our own inner work and we do our own personal work as we're learning the skills to do that and lead other people through it as well. And then we practice. Lots and lots of practice, lots and lots of fun. Like this for me is one of my favorite courses that I love to teach, because I start with a bunch of students that are eager to help people. And what we end up with is people with the skills who know how to help people, but people who have already done, like they've done 5 months worth of coaching work in that time as well. Flies. My kids won't keep doors shut. It's just not going to happen. So there we go. Have you had coaching? What are your thoughts on coaching? Have you experienced it? Have you thought about being a coach? Have you thought about adding coaching to your business, to your life, or even just to your relationships, so that you can help your kids move from that space of being child to adult, and you learn to move into that coach space with them, as opposed to the person who's telling them what they can do and what they should do, to now I'm coaching you. That's how you keep long-term relationships with your kids, is to move from parent to coach, and encouraging them and inspiring them to keep going for the things that they want. All right, that's it for me today. I'm going to go get ready for the Naturopathic Life membership session today, and I will catch you next time. Bye for now. If you've got any coaching questions, go ahead and ask. I'm happy to come back and answer them. See you later.